If you were to be introduced into a room and there was just two people, would you expect your name and your title to be read out? I'm referring to Meghan Markle's Harper's Bazaar interview, and I'll explain what I mean. So in this article, the author, the journalist says, when I enter, the house manager announces Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, even though we appear to be the only two people in the house. What's going on there?
I mean, when I get introduced, I like to be introduced in a much more highfalutin manner to what I am, just like Meghan. I mean, it's quite interesting. That is very telling of how Meghan is and how she sees herself. I mean, she was staying at her friend's brownstone. It was completely empty. This member of staff isn't even someone on her staff. It was just a random member of staff that was in the house at the time. So that tells you a lot about, I guess she must have instructed him or her to say that. It just makes me think that this whole thing is so confected and contrived, and she thinks that she's working the media, but actually she's doing herself a massive disservice by coming across very inauthentic.
Well, this is not even working the media, really. This is her almost in a private, or, you know, it's not in public. She's sitting there with the journalist in a room, and she's been introduced as the Duchess of Sussex. This article in Harper's Bazaar, we'll go into it in a little bit more detail. There's some fascinating aspects in it, but it appears that the title Duchess of Sussex is very important to Meghan.
I think it is very, very important. And I have to say, in the 13 years that I worked in the royal household for the late Queen, I've never, ever seen anything like that before.
Really? That didn't happen when you had the late Queen or Charles?
I mean, for the Queen, if she was having an audience, then the equerry would come in with, say, for example, the Prime Minister, and he would say, Your Majesty, the Prime Minister. That's protocol. But she was the monarch and she was doing head of state business. To have this for the Duchess of Sussex, and clearly she wanted it to happen so much to remind people, yes, I am a member of the royal family. I don't think it's just quite extraordinary. And shows a level of insecurity, would you say?
Totally. I mean, we can see that insecurity even when she sent that letter to Jamie Kern-Lima, the podcast host, with, again, the titles totally sort of misused on a letterhead. I do think that she uses that with every scrap that she can to try and lift herself up status-wise, especially in America, where titles mean something different over there, definitely to over here. But I just hope that when William gets in, he strips them of the titles, because I just don't think she's deserving of them, and I think she's abusing them at this point.
Well, there is a theory, just concentrating on this use of Duchess of Sussex, and you point out about the letter she sent to Jamie Kern-Lima. I remember that it had her HRH, I think, on it.
Yes, I'm pretty sure.
But we've seen what's happened to Andrew. We've seen how that it is possible for titles and Prince and Princess titles, or sorry, you know, Duchess of York titles and Prince Andrews to be removed. It feels that she is keeping possibly on about how she is the Duchess of Sussex because these titles can actually be removed.
I think the circumstances between Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and the Duchess of Sussex are different. I mean, clearly the negativity surrounding Andrew's story, you know, that's been going on for 15 years. I remember dealing with it in 2010 when those photographs, those infamous photographs of Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein in Central Park were first published. You know, that is a story that has not gone away. So I do think circumstances are different. And I also don't think the king at the moment, with everything else going on in his life, including still battling cancer, he's got probably the mental and physical capacity to do that, to take that step. I don't know what you think.
Do you think I'm being silly by suggesting that possibly she's insisting to being called Sussex so often to basically just lay her tanks on the lawn and say, I am Sussex, you can't take Sussex away from me?
It's Meghan Sussex now. You know, that was her line in her cooking show. Yeah, look, I think there are two schools of thought here. I think that I agree the king is totally burdened at the moment, and that's probably the last thing he wants to do. It's also his son, which is obviously a different relationship to his brother. I think that Meghan and Harry will use them regardless, and it's quite upsetting because the late Queen's wishes were that they didn't have this one foot in, one foot out relationship with the royal family, and that's exactly what they're doing. So they're actually sort of trashing her wishes and not abiding by what she wanted them to do. So I think it's massively disrespectful, but I think even if the titles are stripped, they will use them. They will appear on some letterhead in California. I just think that's the way they are.
Let's just move on slightly in this article. So it came out last week. It reminded me of a previous article I remember a few years ago in The Cut, where it almost felt like the journalist or the interviewer was slowly skewering Meghan and slowly pulling her apart and almost deliberately embarrassing her. That was my inference from reading it, because there were some strange things in there. It wasn't just the, announcing me into a room, even though there was only two of us there. She mentioned that they sat at a prime table so other diners could see the three of us. She seemed to be insisting that, or seemed to be explaining that, she also wrote that Meghan is remarkably at ease with the surrealism of global celebrity. In fact, she seems to enjoy it. So what was your taking from this depiction of her in Harper's Bazaar?
Well, it's all about ego and vanity. I want to be seen by other people about my status. If it was me, I'd be doing the interview in a private room, a private dining room, not being gawped at by everybody else. So again, it's all about status, it's all about vanity, it's all about ego.
What about bravery?
I don't think it's bravery to be seen at the Polo Bar in Beverly Hills. I mean, that is a place where you go to be seen. This is total, not status, this is staging of Meghan's life. And she's genuinely, this is where you would go to get paparazzi'd. Everyone in that D-list celebrities go there to be seen and paparazzi'd. It just shows to me that this was never about privacy for Meghan, even though she continues to say, we wanted privacy, that's why we left the firm. Oh yeah, no. If you want privacy, you don't go to Beverly Hills at the best restaurant there where all the sort of celebrities hang out.
There was a celebrity they said that she spoke to. They didn't name that celebrity. Do you remember that? And I do know I've been out to Montecito, and I do know that they've bumped into John Travolta there before. Harry's had a little chat with John Travolta when they've been at the Polo Lounge as well. So it's a great place. The Polo Lounge is a great celebrity hangout. We're talking about bravery. So there's another quote here from this article where she's talking about her children and jam. And she says, I hope they see the value of being brave. They saw it when the jam was just a pot on the stove bubbling.
I don't even know really what that means. I'm so sorry. I mean, what does that mean? That goes completely over my head. And it just goes back to the narrative that she's talking nonsense. I mean, really? Jam?
Jam's very important to her, and it's kind of defined or kind of explaining how brave she is with this project.
Yeah, thanks, Matt, for that.
It's utter drivel. I completely agree. I just think that, she's using jam as this sort of thing to hide behind. But the reality of the situation is that she's doing nothing brave in her life. I mean, for 5 years, or almost 6 years, she's been out of the royal family. She's been said that she was gagged while she was in there. Clearly, she's not. I mean, she hasn't got anything better to say now. There's nothing brave about what she's doing. And I think about some of the royal family members who, fought in wars or represented the country. That's bravery, not posing for a photo shoot with Harper's Bazaar. It's ridiculous.